Welcome to the Grit and Grow podcast, where we talk to guests who are pursuing excellence in both sport and life, who encourage and motivate us to become better mentors, coaches, parents, and athletes. My name is Shane Sowden, head men's basketball coach at Briarcrest College, and also your co-host.
And my name is Justin Simpkins, co-host and director of Prairie Hockey Academy. All right, Shane, on today's Grit and Growth podcast episode, we have Justin Reves. Now, Justin's a childhood friend of mine, and so I have a lot of experience with him. But for our listeners, Justin is actually the morning host of Z99, Justin and Wheels. He's got a lot of energy. Before becoming the morning host, he was an entrepreneur, the Justin and Greg Show. He owned a marketing company, was a marketing executive, an ad expert, sold computers, did different things. He's got quite the story. He and his wife were foster parents and then adoptive parents. He's got some stories of setbacks. He's got some incredible stories of seeing success come through the obstacles. And I'm excited about what he can bring for our, even our student athletes and young families that can listen today.
Well, and Justin, it was just an entertaining conversation, and hearing the backstories and just, stuff I had never heard, from seeing all the stuff on social media and the radio, and then hearing just his perspective on how those things happen, and then coming down to like a lot of his success and biggest impact has come from, regardless of what role he's in, trying to make the people around him as successful as possible, and seeing how that has led him into numerous opportunities, just with that outward focus. It was a great interview and really enjoyed it.
At one time called a comedian from Saskatchewan. Now he lives his life to try and give passion, provide love and provide joy and hope to anybody he comes across. I think you're really going to enjoy today's part one. Justin, it's awesome to have you. You've accomplished a lot in life. You've been in a lot of different sectors. And I think I was thinking about this podcast this morning and going, what is your education in, Justin?
Well, Justin, you and I did a little homeschooling together back in the day. And then...
Yeah, we did.
That's where it all began?
Yeah, that's where it all began,
okay.
Of the Justin's meeting on Friday school, which was where the homeschoolers would get together and try sports and hanging out, I guess.
Some of us did try, yes.
Yeah. Although the best thing about homeschooling is it teaches you to teach yourself, because I don't know how your mom was. My mom didn't. She's like, here's some books, teach yourself. And that was actually a really valuable life lesson. My career/education path is very funny because I did high school. And then after that, I mostly just started working, and I worked at McDonald's, and then I got a job next door at Visions. And then I worked for a tech company called ADX Studio. And then I went to an ad agency. Then I went to a group of car dealerships. I went back to an ad agency. And then I quit and started my own company. And then I met a guy named Greg/Wheels, and we started our own company. And then we were internet people doing YouTube and Facebook.
Influencers.
I guess, for a number of years. And then eventually we ran out of money. And then I went and worked at the airport for 5 years, and then somehow ended up as the morning show host on Z99 now. So I don't really have any formal education. I mean, I have a non-recognized from anywhere diploma in Christian ministry from a Bible school that was very small and different. So I did that when I was 17, 18, 19. But I'm just somebody who's a lifelong learner, who loves taking on new challenges, failing often in the process, and trying to figure it out along the way. And I've been fortunate because I've been able to do a lot of really cool things doing that. And I don't know why people keep giving me these opportunities to try, but they do. And I am very grateful for it.
Well, Justin, what's the longest you've been in one role?
That would be, I spent 5 years at the airport here just before joining Z99. I finished as the director of commercial, passenger, and public relations, which the difference between working in an airport and with airlines and in business and commercial management and real estate and parking and revenue development, going from that to being on a morning show on a radio station is very, very different. But 5 years there. I mean, I started my career when I was pretty young. So I did some 4 and 3 year stints at some places. And then there were some other ones that were like 3 months and then bumping out.
Yeah, I think what probably connects has been your passion for growth, right? That mindset, but also even I think your passion for your home city in Regina, what you did for the Regina Airport, we have you to thank for some of our new direct routes. You played a big, I know it wasn't solely you, but you played a big part in getting the Regina International Airport some growth coming out of kind of our COVID lockdown era, getting some flights back. I'm upset that you're gone because I just can't text you anymore. Be like, remind me what days of the week this flight happens. So that part's a little bit self-serving for me.
I have to throw in, I won't take full responsibility for any of that. Part of a great team, but yeah, it was a very interesting learning experience. And yeah, many people now still text me though. What time do I need to be at the airport for this flight? And I'm gracious enough to be like, where are you going? Who are you flying with? What time? I'll walk you through it. But yeah.
Yeah, love it. Love that. I think a couple pieces that you left out probably along that is, father of three, husband to Megan. You guys took on some challenging roles early on in your marriage as foster parents, and I think you were part of, growing even the foster program in Saskatchewan. Maybe talk a little bit about some of those pieces as a family.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I, we were married pretty young, and by young, I mean I was a teenager. I was 2 weeks short of my 20th birthday. My wife was 20, and then that was an interesting experience getting married young. And then my wife and I, we tried having kids for a number of years and found out that likely wasn't in the cards, and that is a whole thing to walk through. That is very difficult on a relationship and a marriage, and through a series of circumstances, we happened upon the idea of becoming foster parents. And the funny thing is, when we were looking at that, every foster parent we knew was like 50 or older. And we were in our mid 20s, and it was kind of bizarre. But we jumped into that, and we ended up, fostering for 10 years, having a few kids through our home, and ultimately adopting our 3 kids now that we have through that system. And yeah, there were a lot of challenges. We want to talk about adversity. You want to talk about growth. You want to talk about heartache. You want to talk about just so many tough situations for sure. But yeah, it was a really unique experience, and getting involved in that and in the Saskatchewan Foster Families Association. And yeah, there were many difficult, challenging seasons in that, because you're talking about kids, you're talking about giving your heart to kids, not knowing how long they could stay, when they're going to go, when they're going to be back. And all of those things certainly create some challenges there. So we are incredibly grateful for that opportunity. We're incredibly grateful for the kids we have out of that, but we also have some scars along the way from the journey of going through that.
Yeah. What's been the best part of having gone through that for you guys?
I mean, of course, our kids, Odin, Nesta, Rennie, they are incredible individuals, incredible human beings. They themselves have their own unique stories, so many things that they've had to overcome and push through, and getting to watch firsthand when you talk about grit and you talk about growth of these incredible kids, even from a young age, having to learn and own their own stories, because it's not something that was hidden. And even the process of going through foster parenting and fostering and having visits and being a part of that is, it's a lot to work through and a lot to overcome, and will be for a number of years. But, I would say more than anything, though, it is that connection to our city, to our province, to people and relationships that have opened the doors for a lot of incredible conversations, and ultimately being able to be a part of some other people's stories of them getting into fostering, them getting into adopting, being able to support and be a part of that. Even though now we're technically retired from that world, we're still very much connected and passionate advocates for it.
Well, Justin, what led you? I don't know any couples in their mid 20s fostering. Like you said, it was mostly older couples. And so, what was that like with you and your wife? That conversation, because I know a lot of couples find out they can't have kids, they go right to the adoption route right away, or in vitro or whatever it is, and you chose to foster. And so, why that decision? What led to that?
My incredible selfishness, Shane. That's what led to
Okay.
that, because we were living this double income, no kid lifestyle, which I thought was awesome. My wife's like, "What do you think about fostering?" I was like, "You know what? I'm good." Adoption, other things. And then, eventually we heard just this incredible story from somebody who came and spoke at our church. And she shared the story about her and her husband basically went to Ukraine, went into these orphanages, rescued kids out of really terrible situations, often with higher needs, And they had adopted a number of kids out of the situation. And one day her husband was driving down the freeway and a semi-tire came off and went through his windshield and tragically killed him. And she was sharing the story of, I think at that time she had 9 kids that they had adopted out of the situations. And they basically had this home and thing that her and her husband was doing. And she just said, this is what my husband and I were about. This is what we were called to do. And so she just kept going and she adopted more kids and she continued on with the mission. And it was one of those very divine moments. I was sitting there and a voice spoke to me and said, "How selfish of you that you're waiting to have your own kids when there's so many kids out there that need to have a father." And I was like, okay, yep. Okay, so we're going to do something about this. But then the idea of fostering was like, well, we could try it out. And if it doesn't work, we'll just send the kids back, you know? And so that's what I thought. Our first day of training, I was quickly like, oh, like we'll be whatever these kids need for however long they need to be. But honestly, it was more of a selfish decision because it seemed a lot less permanent than just going right to adoption. And to be honest, like we didn't know anybody who actually fostered. Like we heard stories about people and we found out about people. But one of the lessons we learned, which is funny, when you're looking at doing something maybe that's new or something that's breaking ground, it is wild how many negative stories come out. Suddenly, everybody had a story for us of a terrible experience that somebody had fostering. Of this kid burned down this home and this kid broke all this stuff and this kid was so terrible and it was all these things. And we suddenly were surrounded by discouragement. And we had to like make a decision in this moment of like, well, are we really going to do this? And I'm very grateful that we did. But just something that's interesting, I've noticed in my life a few times when I've gone to make really big changes in my life, you got to be careful the kind of counsel that you let in because especially people who haven't actually walked the path, it wasn't stories directly from people who had fostered, it was from people who knew people. And but thankfully we pushed through and we decided to do it and it was the best decision we ever made.
There's really something to that. I think you just talked about in the midst of big life changes and transition moments, we need to be careful about who we let into giving us counsel. And because a lot of negativity can come in, as you mentioned. And some of those stories, I'm sure, gave you guys some sleepless moments going, wow, do we listen to this or do we not?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, sometimes too, it comes from people who genuinely care about you and they don't want you to get hurt. And oftentimes when we risk and we take challenges and we take on new things, it's going to be painful and you are going to get hurt. And that unfortunately is part of growth sometimes. And especially, I mean, fostering is a big thing. Okay. You're asking kids to come in and be in your heart. And for a young couple who couldn't have their own kids, I get why people around us would go, you guys, like this will be so painful for you. But it was one of those situations where we had to look at it and go, yeah, it probably is going to be really painful for us. But it's also really painful for these kids. So we're going to choose for their best interest over our own best interest. But sometimes it's people who they mean really well because they care about you and they don't want to see you be hurt or even be uncomfortable or have to go through really tough things. Nobody wants that, but unfortunately, that's how some of the best things in life happen.
I love it. I was reviewing this as we were preparing for you to come on. I think for our listeners out there today, I think you're getting the fact that Justin and I have known each other for a number of years, and I really look up to Justin and what he's done. And as I was reviewing some of, there's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and she had a quote in there that she just said, the hallmark of successful individuals is that they love learning, they seek challenges, they value effort, and they persist in the face of obstacles. And I think it's really easy for us to say we love to learn. I think it's really easy for us to say that we, can seek some challenges. It's easy for us, we're coaching a girls softball team like I am, and we can be like, oh, we really value effort. But man, when obstacles come our way, how often do we fold? And anyway, Justin, you're a guy that hasn't, and I've admired that about you. And this is why I think your stories that you can talk to us about today, and this just being one, I look at your life coming from fostering and some of these obstacles and choosing in the face of the challenges to continue to strive forward, I think led into the opportunities that you continue to experience, as an entrepreneur and in the business world that we can get to, and your identity of who you're becoming in the process. When I think about setbacks, And when things don't go the way you want them to in life, how would you tell, a young student athlete or somebody in high school today of, how they should respond?
Hmm. Well, I think, the thing I've learned over the years is that growth comes through adversity. And there's no good way to grow without some challenges and without setbacks. Or maybe you can grow really, really, really slowly with small setbacks and small challenges, or you can choose to grow really, really quickly with big setbacks and big obstacles. And in some ways, like I feel fortunate because I'm a person who I really love change. And so I love new challenges. I love learning. I love them, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of them where if I knew what I had to go through to learn the lessons I did up front, I probably wouldn't have done them.
Yeah.
And it is funny where that's where I've been fortunate enough where I just keep throwing myself in the deep end because I think it'll be a fun adventure and then trying to figure out how to swim. And I don't know that that's always the best way, but that's just the way I've handled it. And maybe a few examples was I had a great job at a spot, and then a company I used to work for contacted me to come join their company, buy in, and become a partner. And I thought it was like the coolest opportunity. I was like 27 at the time. I'm like, this is amazing. So I quit that job. I got my money together for the buy in, got there and went, oh, this isn't right for me at all. And I don't know what to do, except I know I can't be here. And actually, you, Justin, gave me a book that I read over the weekend, read it on a Sunday, and Monday I came in and quit because I was like, I can't be here, but I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I just said to my wife, like, well, I got enough money to float us for a couple of months from the buy-in that I didn't end up using. And I guess I'll start my own company, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And that was like one of the best decisions I ever made. And, I had that company for a little while. And then I met this guy named Greg, who was a complete stranger. And after meeting like 3 times, I was like, I should start a Facebook Live show with this guy. I don't really know him, but I should do this. And so I said, do you want to start a Facebook Live show with me? And he was like, okay, like when? I'm like, how about Tuesday? Let's do it on Tuesday. So we started on Tuesday. And the day after that, I said, I should convince this guy to quit his job and join me and start a company together, even though his wife had just given birth to their first child. And he was stupid enough to say yes. And we started this company and it was awesome. And then eventually we had a Facebook Live show and we had a marketing company and we just started making content on the side. And the content got so popular at some point, we kind of again had to make a tough decision and we fired all of our clients and went all in on just full time making content, YouTube videos, Facebook videos. We had a ton of success, some crazy stories in the process. And we eventually just completely ran out of money and bankrupted ourselves nearly in the process. And that's how Greg turned into Wheels and got his job in the radio. And a number of years later, I came back around and we rejoined forces when an opportunity came up. But I don't know. I just said yes to opportunities, and if something felt right, I would just jump into it and trust that it's going to work out. And ultimately, I'm going to be taken care of, and my family's going to be taken care of.
So comfort zone's over here,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to leave our comfort zone and kind of go through pain, and the pain sets us free into
Yeah.
endless possibilities. Right?
Yeah, it's
You draw
funny
that on
how
a whiteboard.
yeah. Well, and we live in this world that somehow can often preach the gospel of comfort. And like the goal of life is to get a good job, have a family, be comfortable, retire, be comfortable. And I just, maybe for some people that life works, and it's no judgment if it does. But if you really want to make a difference and you really want to grow and you really want to lead and you really want to have an impact on this world, you have to be uncomfortable. And unfortunately, you're right. There's no way to be uncomfortable without pain. And we're kind of told like pain is a bad thing. But it's not fun, but it's also incredibly necessary for life. And I don't know the difference between how to metaphorically have the pain that comes from just like working out where you're sore versus sometimes I feel like I've, jumped off a 20-foot platform and then just broken both my legs and been like, ow, that hurts. How do I not have that kind of pain all the time? I don't know, but it is what
Yeah.
it is.
Well, and what would you say, like through the fostering various different roles, businesses, jobs? What's one unexpected lesson through all that you've learned that you never foresaw coming?
I think for me, growing up, I was like a pretty self-reliant person. Even like the whole homeschooling thing is like, my mom gave me my textbooks and I just like taught myself and I figured it out myself. And for many things in life, I would just do it myself. I wouldn't ask for help and wouldn't really accept help. And I've had to learn over the years how much more value there is in, like in marriage, having a partnership, or in business, having strong partners, or letting mentors in your life, or letting other people be a part of the process, and your own journey of having those people that are really, really close to you and that you go through life with has been immensely helpful and helped me get through some times that were pretty challenging and pretty difficult. And doing things in isolation can be, yeah, incredibly difficult. But then on the other hand, you also have to be careful who you let in, who are people who are not trying to like fix, or not trying to direct, or not trying to push what they think you should do on you, but are supporting you in your own journey of learning and letting you fail and make mistakes and figure it out, but just being there to support you through those things. That community is immensely important.
So unexpected lessons are that community is important. The counsel of the community that you brought in is important. Finding people that are curious within questions with you, and kind of walking alongside you as you really learn the lessons of life, because there's only one way to learn that, and that's to go through it and not to have somebody just protect you from it. How does somebody seek those type of people out?
You know what? I went through seasons where I didn't have anybody in that regard. And what was funny is, as I went on my journey and as I pushed into the things I felt like I was supposed to do, it was amazing to see those people come around. The people that are really closest to me have come alongside throughout my journey, of people like Greg or Wheels. Like, we were complete strangers,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like doing some new stuff that I was pushing into, and we had a mutual friend named Jeff, who Jeff had his own little kind of podcast thing. And I met Greg doing the things I was doing there, and we connected over that. Or I've got another friend, Tyson, who we just kind of got introduced as I was championing things for the city and he was championing things for the city, become one of my closest friends. Of, you can't just wait for people um, before you do something. I would say, like, that ends up being tough, but you need to be open to it as the people come around, and not be afraid to carefully reveal your heart and reveal what you're after, so that people can see it and it'll attract people alongside. When we had this Facebook Live show that we started, and for some people, they're gonna be like, Facebook, that's for grandmas and grandpas. Well, 10 years ago, it wasn't for grandmas and grandpas, and it was really young and it was really new. And we were on the cutting edge of having this high quality live show that really hadn't been done before. We ended up working with Facebook's live team on it. It was super duper cool. But I was always like so humbled and blown away that we had so many people who are like, can we just come and help? And be like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want? They're like, nothing. We just want to come along. Like, what you guys are doing is fun and it's awesome. We just want to be a part of it and help do it. And there's people like a guy named Ryan Baracco from ICAST Media, who would show up nights and help produce the thing, and at times bring cameras and do shows and all these things, just because he wanted to be a part of the cool stuff that we were doing. So in some ways too, it's like, don't just wait for it. Go for something and watch the people catch your vision for it, see what you're after. And it's amazing how that kind of attracts like-minded people to what you're doing.
I get it. I mean, I'm attracted to people that are championing things, right? When you see someone championing something, or you want to be around those type of people, you want to learn from them. And so get it. So love that message. Put yourself out there, go on something, and just watch and wait for the people that are going to come your way. And when they come their way, genuinely, they will come like they're going to offer their gifts to you,
Yeah.
essentially to partner with you and to learn with you, as opposed to trying to take from you. I think
Yeah.
that's a big piece.
Well, and Justin, were you always like this? Was this always just you weren't afraid to take that chance to jump into the deep end? Like, were you always kind of unafraid to fail, or if you failed, like, oh well, okay, I'm moving on to the next thing, whatever. Like, just kind of like, where did this resiliency muscle start to build and grow and take shape?
I would say for the first 25 years of my life, I was terrified of making mistakes. I did not want to fail. I didn't want to make a mistake. I wanted to get everything right. I wanted to be perfect. And then I read a little book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and it literally changed my life on the way of understanding a fixed versus a growth mindset of going, wait a minute, I don't have to try and prove that I have it all together. Instead, I can try new things. And if I fail, I'm actually growing and becoming a better version of myself. And that really transformed something in my life that helped me. I still don't like to make mistakes. I don't like to fail. I don't like to look like an idiot. I don't like any of that stuff. And I have these tendencies to want to blame and want to deflect and things, but it's really helped me to go, okay, I can try something new. And if it doesn't work out, I'm better off for it than if I never tried it at all. And so, yeah, that book had a huge impact on my life and really, I think, changed the course for me. So I'm really grateful to Dr. Carol Dweck and all the work she's done.
What is the, I don't like the word failure, but what's your quote unquote biggest failure that turned out to be a massive, led to something big or something better down the line?
Hmm. Well, I think probably my favorite one is this. When I was supposed to buy into this company and become a partner in it, I really thought at 27 I had arrived at something big, and this was going to unlock my life and open up so many doors. And having to then realize, like, I left a great job for this opportunity. I thought it was going to be amazing. I clearly misjudged it, had to quit, and had no idea what I was going to do. That opened the door for, I'd never even thought about like entrepreneurship and what that meant. And it kind of forced me into that, which created a ton of incredible opportunities and just opened the doors to so many people and doing things I never thought possible in different worlds and different connections. And ultimately kind of led us all around the world of, the story of us trying to get Saskatchewan to adopt the Vegas Golden Knights and becoming NHL media and getting to hang out with Marc-Andre Fleury and in the locker room with NHL players and, end up at the Stanley Cup finals and so many cool stories there to flying to New York to try and get Jimmy Fallon to come to Regina or starting an international moose war between Moose Jaw and Norway there.
You started that?
Yeah, we did.
I remember that now. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
There's some big things there of going, that was one failure that I remember there was a moment during the Moose War where Wheels and I were on BBC Radio 1, which is the largest broadcast in the entire world, for 8 minutes talking to 100 million people at once and going, how did this happen? And it's like, it's those moments before a failure that open the doors for that. So, very grateful for that. And ultimately, all those failures along the way led me to where I am today, which is pretty awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Grit and Growth Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed today's guest and the answers that they were able to give and the stories they were able to tell. If you did enjoy today's episode, we'd ask that you would just follow or subscribe to our podcast. It does help us get the word out and our message. Thanks again. Have a great day.